You didn't really know what he was doing. And just a minute or two after that, I think she made the comment in that video, "Is this for me?" And that's when she started like ruffling like a cellophane, like on a cigarette pack. And when we got through with that, we got back to her house, which I wasn't on. I didn't go back to the house with him on that one, I don't think. She gave him the pills, and she had pills, but there was no drug talk on the video. There was no drug talk on any audio recordings. There was no clear hand-to-hand exchange of drugs at the judge's office.
Did you at some point advise the Commonwealth attorney about the investigation?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that.
I informed him what we had and what the accusation that was made, and he told me I needed to try an outside agency to come in, to get them to come in and take it over. And he thought it was best to contact the Attorney General's office, and we actually set an appointment up with the Attorney General. They informed me to get a transaction first, then they would come in and assist us. And I took the Attorney General everything we had on that first transaction, and they ended up assigning a detective to assist us on that, to show there was, we're completely unbiased. But during that time, we ended up setting a meeting up with Assistant U.S. Attorney Pat Malloy in London, Kentucky, to see if the feds were interested in it. And he said that there would be no federal statutes that they could tell that were violated, really, and that they wouldn't be interested in it. And then we went with the Attorney General's office from there, and they assisted us on the next two transactions.
Did you ever have questions about Ms. Hensley's credibility?
At first, I didn't.
Why?
Because she had made a few buys that were really solid buys, and she was established by pretty much everybody's standards. I mean, that's used in our part of the state. Mm-hmm. And I had no reason to at first. And then when we started watching the video and in the debrief, she would say something happened, and you're looking at the video and you see that didn't happen. And that started raising some issues of credibility. That was toward the end of the investigation when I really started watching the videos, because it just didn't make any sense that there was no dope talk on phone calls, there was no dope talk on the videos. To me, it didn't make sense. And at that time, I started raising a few issues with it. I wasn't overly concerned, but I was beginning to get concerned about it.
Did the Attorney General's office or the Commonwealth Attorney have any similar concerns that were expressed to you?
I don't remember if we talked to the Commonwealth Attorney about it at first. The Attorney General's investigator, William Stewart, actually, we talked about it. Silas Whitehead, who was a detective with me, and Jason Snellen, who was the secondary detective, had talked about it, and Jason had expressed a lot of concern about it. Silas felt that we had enough. William Stewart seemed to think that we didn't have anything. And that pretty much toward the end of that's when we decided we were going to offer her a polygraph. And when she went to take the polygraph, she refused to take the polygraph, said that she had a pacemaker or a defibrillator. Well, I think it was a pacemaker installed, and she said she'd had it installed on her lower right buttocks.
Yeah, that's sustained.
Sheriff, at some point, was there a meeting or a discussion with Judge Allred about where the subject of the Grisham investigation came up?
One time, yes, sir.
Tell us where that occurred, when it occurred, and what you recall about that conversation.
If I recall correctly, he came around the corner coming from the Justice Center. Myself and Chief Deputy Yeard were standing outside, and as always, Judge Allred pulled up. He spoke with everyone. I mean, very friendly. We just small talked, and then it popped up. It came up in my head. I need to ask about a continuance on Melissa Hensley, and I asked him about continuance. And he just asked. He said, she doing any good for you? And I said, yes, sir. We got some people up Kaywood, and we're looking at some other people, some pretty bigger, what we consider bigger people, and we might have a big fish or two on the hook. And he said, like who? And I said, well, just some big fish. And well, he a little bit insistent, which was a little our character, but he had what I said. He wasn't like demanding, I want to know who. It was, like who is it? And I said, Joe Grisham. And he said, I don't believe you. I said, yep, we've got it on video. We've got one video. And he said, well, I want to see this. I said, you sure? He said, yeah. So we walked inside the office, and I couldn't get to play on my computer, so Chief Deputy Urey got the SD card that we insert into the little DVRs that was part of the camera system, and brought it down, and we watched the briefing, the prep of the tape, and then I fast-forwarded through because it shows the purse sitting in her lap, and it's just staring up, or it's not staring, the camera's pointed up through the windshield at the sky, and you see trees going by. There's no anything drug related to it. I fast forward up to where she goes into his office, and then we go watch through that. I don't remember if he watched the debrief or not. I think he may have watched the debrief. And before we started watching the video, when we call my chief deputy Winston is his name, when he handed me the SD card, he said, Judge, are you sure?
Sustained.
Okay. What did Judge Allred say during the course of this meeting? That's what I'm interested in.
He stated he would have to recuse from the case.
Did you or anyone else who was present at the meeting express any concerns when Judge Allred asked to see the tape?
Chief Deputy Urey did.
What did he say?
He just...
Did you have any reservations about Judge Allred watching the tape?
I knew it wasn't normal practice, but, you know, he's the circuit judge. He wanted to see it, and I needed a continuance on my case.
Did he provide that continuance from Ms. Hensley?
Yes, sir, which he had done on other cases.
Was there any, in this, if I understand your testimony correctly, this was not like a scheduled meeting?
No, sir. No, sir.
Did Judge Allred ever ask you, strike that, did anyone at this meeting ever ask for a search warrant or an arrest warrant that they needed Judge Allred to sign?
At that meeting?
Yes, sir.
No, I don't think so.
At that point of the investigation, was there any discussion in your office about the need to secure an arrest warrant or search warrant on the Grisham investigation?
I don't remember if we spoke about a search warrant or not. We may have for Grisham's office, but I honestly don't remember.
But it wasn't discussed at this meeting with Judge Allred that you've told us about?
I don't think so.
Were you involved at all in any discussions about whether to present this case involving Joe Grisham to a special grand jury?
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you know about that.
I think it was April 22nd, 2010, the day that the grand jury order came down, which I think Henry and I had said that he and the judge had spoke about it before. And it was the 22nd, which was, I think it was a Thursday, because Friday evening I actually had the order handed to me by one of the Justice Center staff. I read it, and I thought, well, that's what Henry and the judge decided, then so be it. And just happens the judge calls over looking, wanting to know about a bench warrant on a drug court participant. And we were checking that out. I got onto the phone. I said, Judge, I said, I just got my grand jury order. He said, yes, sir. He said, Sheriff, he said, Henry and I have discussed this, and we need to present this to a grand jury. People in Harlan County need to see what's going on. They need to know what's going on. And if we can't see the grand jury in Harlan County, we'll have to do one in Bale County. And I said, well, if that's what you and Henry's decided, I said, but I don't think I've got that good of a case. And he said, well, he said, from everything Silas told me, from what I've seen on those videos, it makes me sick. And I said, all right then. I mean, just the grand jury order was already done. There's no need to argue about it.
Let me show you that grand jury order. Let me show you what was marked exhibit number 11, Judge, the grand jury order. This is exhibit number 11. Is that the order that you received on Friday?
Yes, sir, I believe it is.
Had you ever seen an order entered like that before?
No, sir, but we don't do any special grand juries in Harlan either.
Did you think it was odd that the target of the grand jury investigation was identified and specified in the order?
I thought it was odd, but I didn't know if it needed to be or not.
Were you present before we move on to the next topic, did you draw any conclusions or form any opinions as to why Judge Allred may have entered that order?
Objection. Calls for speculation on the part of the witness without foundation as an expert.
He can answer if he formed an opinion.
I thought it was so strange to do it right before the election, because that was one of the things I really didn't want to do, was present it before the election. But you know, it was a primary election that year, and I didn't want to be accused of influencing the election, but it was there, and I had to deal with it.
Were you aware of who was running in the election for Judge Executive?
Yes, sir.
Who?
Judge Grisham was running for election. Sean Miller and Denny Pace.
And are you familiar with any relationship between Mr. Pace and Judge Allred?
I believe they're cousins, something like that.
Were you present in the Harlan County Courthouse on Monday, May the 3rd?